Hey everybody, Rosematter here. Welcome to part 8 of my Chaos Child Let's Play. The last episode was just kind of a lot of fluff. I don't mean that in a bad way, but it feels like the calm before the storm. It's the setup for the festival and hijinks going on with a bunch of characters, with Aramura-san, with Sarika, and then we had like a cute little moment with Kurusu on the roof of the school. She is still not fully recovered, but she came to check on how things were going. Takaru was kind of admitting to himself that maybe being a normie isn't such a bad thing. Maybe he should just be a normal high school student and not chase after this, this case. And Kurusu was telling him, like, hey, come home. We miss you. Stop chasing the truth. It's dangerous. And he seemed to give it some consideration. And then, at the very end, with Ito getting a call from Takaru's number, which should be impossible considering that he basically like shut off his account. So all the more reason that maybe like someone's telling him, oh, and then the knocking too, like that's all he heard was the knocking, like a warning, like, hey, back off. So that's where we left off. Today is going to be the day of the festival. It is also the 10th, so some shit's going to go down. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. So without further ado, let's get into it.
9時半になりました。皆さん、よろしいでしょうか。それではこれより、第3回私立壁氷学園文化祭を開催いたします。
I don't know why it's so funny when you just hear them individually be like, yay! All the students in the gym roared as soon as Kawahara-kun finished. Cheerful music began to fill the room, and students in costumes who probably belonged to some club or another began to dance. Half of the students watched them and laughed as they left the gym. They were probably the students in charge of the classroom displays and stalls in the courtyard. Kazuki looked over to me to see if I was okay. Even if it was a lie, it was all I could bring myself to say. I couldn't smile. Because of her talents, Kazuki was asked to handle the audio system along with me for the Student Council's opening ceremony. The rest of the Student Council, except for Kawahara-kun, as well as Sarika and Ito, should have left during the ceremony to patrol the school. It was only going to get busier when the school opened to the public at 10 a.m., about 30 minutes from now. When that happened, people from outside the school would be allowed in, and many different events would be held. I had to do my job too, but I couldn't bring myself to get out of the chair. Huh? Kazuki offered me a lollipop.
Yeah.
She's like, how about some dried squid? Yep. She thought for a moment and took out a piece of dried squid from who knows where. I can't imagine having a lollipop in your mouth and then putting squid in your mouth. That's got to be a weird, or vice versa. Like, that's got to be a weird combination of tastes and textures.
いや、そうじゃなくて。わかった。もらうよ。
I grabbed the lollipop and stood up. Kazuki stayed to handle the audio. She might have problems communicating, but there were other members of the student council around, so she'd probably be fine.
ありがとな。
自主映画特別棟2階視聴覚室でやってます。100円です。パンフレットタダで配布してます。9
時半から屋上のテニスコートでコメディテニスします。熱くなれよ。
I ignored the advertisements and headed to my destination. After that call, Ito had picked up the smartphone and called the number back, but no one had picked up. There was only the message that played when you shut off your service. The customer has requested that this number be temporarily disabled. We talked for a while, but none of us had any good ideas. By 3 a.m., we'd settled on participating in the culture festival like normal, and laid down on our desks to get some sleep. But I couldn't sleep. I was too nervous. And there was the interview today, too, with, what's his name? In the end, I didn't get a wink of sleep, and was only half awake for the opening ceremony and final check of the class's video. In the morning, I'd passed by Aramura-san in the hallway. She had the smile on her face that she wore when she was with her friends. That only made me more nervous, and I was still nervous right now. I didn't yawn even once. I could see Sarika patrolling the stalls near the gate through the open doors of the school. Come to think of it, she'd said she hadn't slept well either. If someone with her appetite was ignoring all the tasty treats for sale at the food stalls, she must have been telling the truth. Sarika had made contact with them at the hospital, too. How were they able to call when I'd shut off my phone? No, I should stop thinking about it. I'd asked myself all these questions already. Why had they called Ito? How were they able to? Was there a reason they called right at the start of the day of a new gen incident? Oh yeah, right, and a murder is going to be happening today too. Should I go to the police? But would they believe me? And I hadn't come up with answers to any of those questions. I could hear loud murmurs in the distance.
おい、裏門の方、渡部来てるらしいぜ。マジかよ、行ってみようぜ。
He's early. The meeting's supposed to be at 1 p.m. Oh, wait. He said he was going to do an article on the culture festival itself, right?
タク、行かないの？
At some point, Sarika had walked up behind me. Was she on patrol?
どうせ後で会うんだし、別にいいよ。
And suddenly she got very close to me.
元気が足りないな。もしかしてまだ昨日のあれ気にしてる？
そりゃそうだろ。
I'd be crazy not to be thinking about it.
というか、お前だってさっきまで暗い顔してたじゃないか。
When I'd seen her just a second ago, she looked really glum, but for some reason she looked better now. She looked surprised that I'd seen her, and then...
それはそうだけど、でもさ、だったら何かが起きる前に私たちが解決すればいいじゃんって。5人で仲良く真実を追求し解決するのが新聞部のモットーでしょ？
I've never heard that motto before.
タクならできるって。
After giving me a completely baseless motivational speech, she went back to her patrol.
タクならできるってか。
タクル、もう事件なんか追わないって約束して。帰ってきなさい。手伝ってほしいことたくさんあるの。
For now, I needed to get through this interview. First, there was the video to talk about, and then... the sumo sticker with a different face. It would be great if I could ask Watabe what that meant too. I took a deep breath and started to go over the interview in my head.
来ないね。渡部さん、どうしちゃったのかな。
It was already 1:15 p.m. The interview was supposed to start at 1. Maybe this is like some weird power flex thing, like I'm more important than you, I'll come when I want to. Everyone had heard that Watabe, the famous journalist, was going to be here. The audience seats in the gym were packed. There were even people standing. Oh, why do I have a feeling he's going to make a fool of himself in front of all these people? Everyone in the newspaper club except Kurusu had arrived, and we were waiting below the stage. All the preparations were complete. But there was no sign of Watabe himself. What if he's going to be the next one to die? Somehow he got murdered at the school when there's hundreds of people around.
控え室にはいたんだろ？
ああ、1時間くらい前かな。挨拶して。
何やってんだ？緊張してトイレか？
それは僕だ。
は？
ここだけの話、さっきからトイレばっかり行ってる。やっぱり僕には無理だ。こんな大勢の前で対談なんて。
今さらなんだよお前。
Sure, but I couldn't help but be nervous. I wasn't any good at dealing with crowds or people I didn't know. But now I was going to have to deal with both. Take the hint.
よし、伊藤、部長の座を譲る。お前が仕切ってくれ。
アホか。
Ito laughed away an offer I'd made in all seriousness. He stood up from his chair.
それにしても遅えな。みんな待ちくたびれてるじゃん。生徒会は何してんだ？
Watabe was supposed to be getting the VIP treatment, and it was the student council's job to take care of him. But with Kurusu gone, they were probably having a hard time keeping up with all their work. From what I'd heard, without Kurusu there to keep the peace, fights and arguments were breaking out everywhere. It only went to show how much everyone relied on her.
仕方ねえな。ちょっと呼んできてやるか。
Maybe he is dead. Somehow someone got to him.
私も行くよ。
おい。
Don't leave me and Kazuki here alone. Neither of us are capable of talking to anyone. What if Watabe comes when they're gone? What will we do then? But Saraka Ito went off to the waiting room without us. This was a problem.
あれれ、まだ始まってないんすね。
え？
先輩、チャオっす。
Oh, it's just Aramura-san. Come to think of it, she'd asked me to ask Watabe about that picture. Now that I'm thinking about it, the phone conversations when they said like when they were talking about like what's talking about me, I think, and then they said like, oh, he's having there's an interview with Watabe tomorrow, and they said kill him. Maybe they're not talking about killing me. Maybe they're talking about killing Watabe.
ずいぶん遅いですね。
はい。
I mean, right?
今
It's the 10th.
迎えに行ってるけど。
He's late for an interview he was very interested in doing. I don't know. It's pointing to like maybe he's the one, the next victim.
ほーん。
そうだ、有村さん、聞こうと思ってたんですけど。
なんすか？
画像のことについて渡部さんを追求してほしいんですよね。その画像ってラブホテルの力士シールのことでしょ。それには僕たちも興味を持ってるんですけど、有村さんはどこまで知ってるんですか？あれのこと。
Aramura-san looked serious for just a moment, but then she grinned.
情報量は高くつくぜ、あんちゃんよ。
お金取るんですか？
当たり前よ。キャッシュで5000万スイス銀行に振り込んでくんな。くっくっく。
小学生みたいなこと言ってないで本気で教えてください。
むか。
渡部さんにはうまく質問しますから。だから僕らにも情報を。
ねえ先輩。
はい。
She's like, you better shut your face or I'll kill you.
何度も言ってますけど、私に敬語はいりませんよ。改めてくれるまでずっと言い続けますからね。
He doesn't seem self-conscious. It seems like he was talking to her pretty confidently.
はい。
She changed the subject. Aramura-san was incredibly interested in Watabe's picture of the sumo sticker. Did she think if I questioned him about it, she might gain some valuable information? I considered this as I watched her twin tails bounce in the air. And then suddenly the curtain on the stage began to rise. I could start to see the bottom of the lectern and the chairs. Oh, maybe I was wrong.
ねえ、始まっちゃいますよ。伊藤先輩たちは？
Or maybe his body is like on the stage dead and then it's going to be revealed to us. There was no message from the student council, and we had no idea what to do as we watched the curtain rise.
やっとかよおい。
遅えよ渡部。
渡部さん。
As the curtain rose, the gym was filled with the cheers and boos of the students.
人、おのえ、何 何してんだよ。早く戻ってこいって。
あれ
Suddenly, Aramura-san spoke up. Yep, something's
どうしたの？
wrong, huh? Something's up.
見てください。なんか変です。
She pointed to the stage. I looked up toward it.
は？
Oh shit! Watabe came up the stairs backstage and was walking towards the podium. He's like, he looks all puffed up. Like he looks like he's got, like it's about to burst out of his stomach. Is he we're gonna have like an alien situation where something's just gonna bust out of him? But he was staggering and struggling to stay up, and he looked like he was in pain. There was thick sweat on his forehead, and something that looked like drool was dripping from his lips. But what was even stranger was his stomach. How to describe it? The spot between his ribs and hips, right where his stomach and intestines would be, was all swollen. You heard the word beer belly a lot, but it was worse than that. It was as if someone had stuck a giant rubber ball under his shirt. The students saw this and started to whisper. Their voices grew louder and louder. Is he just gonna, like, bust open? So here's the thing. Someone managed to do this in a very, very busy place with lots of people around. It's like whoever's doing this, orchestrating this, is like almost rubbing it in their face, like, look what I can do. He wasn't in a private place, wasn't by himself, and someone still managed to get to him. His moans grew louder as he reached the center stage. Just listening to them was enough to make you go crazy.
なんですかあれ。なんなんですか。
わからない。
The whole gym, including the three of us, started to get louder. The students' screams echoed in my ears. Some people were trampled in the mad dash for the exits. But as everyone else was panicking, Aramura-san and I stood there in silent shock.
あれは。
そんな。
Something was pouring out of Watabe's mouth, mixed with his blood and stomach fluids. Ugh. It had a face. Oh shit, of course, it wasn't Watabe's face. It was something we had seen many times before. What is going on? What was it? I knew it well, but it took me a few seconds to understand. And then... Oh my gosh. This is grotesque.
歴史シール。
Aramura-san began to scream, her voice joining the cacophony created by the other screaming students. Wow. October 10th, 2015, Saturday. I feel so bad for, like, I don't feel that bad for Watabe. He was a scumbag from what we saw, but, like, I feel bad for the students. Like, they put so much effort into doing all of this work for the culture festival, and it's just been ruined. Okay, so this is 1228, so I'm wondering if this is going to be like a flashback to what happened to Watabe before all that happened, in an unused classroom in Hekiho Academy.
何もないところですいませんが、
This
ここで
fucking
お待ちいた
teacher.
だけますか。
I'm telling you, man, this teacher, he's behind it. He's behind it. Like, we've got all the students, like all the people related to the case, Aramura, the members of the newspaper club. They all go to Hekiho. We've got this teacher here who always seems to kind of be around. When Kurusu got stabbed, he, for some reason, was there. He just keeps showing up. He's behind it in some way, right? Like, I bet he was the one that's talking on the phone with whoever. And when they were saying, like, kill him, I bet it was about Watabe, not about Takeru.
いえ、早く来てしまったのはこちらですから。
Watabe bowed, and the man who had led him here from the teacher's office bowed back. Then the man left the room. He'd forgotten the man's name as soon as he'd heard it. All he remembered was he was a typical high school student, with somewhat delicate features. That was all Watabe thought he needed to know, right? Just someone who just seems very unassuming, kind of slipping through the shadows.
しかし、なんでもねえところだな。
He'd heard that Hekiho was famous, but once he'd gotten inside, he'd found it was just a normal high school, maybe a little cleaner than most. He'd seen a TV crew from some station interviewing a student on his way here, but he couldn't imagine there was anything worth asking one.
まあ多少は見どころのある奴らもいるみたいだが。
Since his ostensible reason for being here was to do an article on the culture festival, he had to take a few pictures. It didn't matter what pictures he took, so he decided to just walk through the school. As he passed by a class that was doing some kind of Garo Froggy cafe, there was a bit of a fuss. Student after student had asked him for handshakes and autographs. Almost the entire class had known his name. He'd even taken a selfie with a girl who said she was a huge fan of his. When he told her to keep it a secret, she'd given him an innocent smile. That was the way it should be. That was the way normal people were supposed to act.
もっと上に行ってやれ。
It was only a short while ago that an online friend of his had suggested he come here. When he'd been putting together what he'd found out about the sumo stickers, those fucking brats at the newspaper club here had published just before he did. He'd given up on publishing his own article, but at least decided to show it to someone. When he'd let his friends see it, they suggested he publish it anyway. Is that maybe, what's her name, Kunasato? The girl who is working with Momo? True, he was confident in the article itself. He'd gotten a very good picture of the sumo sticker at the Love Hotel, which the newspaper club had only been able to get from a distance. There was a chance he'd be called out for plagiarism, but then his friend had continued. You're capable of turning that to your advantage, right? His friend knew him well.
所詮は高校生の一部活だ。
Nah, it is. Oh, okay. Still high school. I thought he was going to say there's still a high school student. Confirming it was Kunosato. Everything would depend on how he handled the interview, but Watabe was confident he could use this to bolster his fame. The ideal result would be to show the newspaper club were the ones who had copied him. They uploaded their newspaper to Nikoniya all the time, so they were sure to know who he was. If he offered them the chance to help with his articles, they would jump on it no matter what demands he made. He'd started off at the very bottom, and he'd worked his way up this far. He was capable of getting any scoop he wanted. His power was a blessing from heaven for a man who wanted to be a first-rate journalist. Like, yeah, this guy doesn't sound like a megalomaniac at all. Doesn't sound narcissistic at all. In the whole history of journalism, there had never been a case where a net reporter had identified a suspect ahead of the cops, the news, or the magazines. When a writer at a weekly magazine had found a suspect before the police, all of Japan was in an uproar. Watabe wanted to surpass that.
あとは警察へのコネがあれば完璧だな。
His one worry was the Love Hotel incident. When he charged into the crime scene and gotten into a fight with the cops there, his camera had gone out of focus, and he'd failed to see part of the sumo sticker. He'd used that to get this scoop, but if someone on the police force was paying attention to those stickers, and if they were enough of a weirdo to be paying careful attention to Watabe's articles, they might find something strange.
まあ大して違ってはいないだろうからな。
Oh, is it? Oh, so like he put that sticker there, I'm guessing, afterwards, and then took the picture to be like, look. And that's why it was different. People didn't really want to hear the truth. They wanted lies that sounded true, embellished, so they were all the more pleasing. There's the knock. When he heard the sound, he quickly flipped himself back into hardworking, good-natured reporter mode.
はい、どうぞ。どうぞ。
They didn't open the door, nor did they say anything. Watabe grunted, soft enough they couldn't hear, and then put on a smile as he went to answer the door. Right? That teacher totally put him in that room on purpose, like away from everybody, where it was quiet.
わからない。
They're just using the same things over and over again. Okay, we get it. This is bad. The students all started to panic at once, and the gym was filled with screams. Then Watabe's body fell to the floor, as if in slow motion. His legs were splayed. His eyes were open wide, still full of the terror of death. He was weeping tears of blood, and
あれは
そんな。
歴史シール。
yes, it was a huge pile of sumo stickers. Watabe was probably already dead, but there were still crumpled sumo stickers pouring out of his mouth. Maybe they targeted him because of the fact that he put, if it was that him that put that sticker there to take a picture for his article, and maybe they saw that as some sort of, whoever is behind this saw that as a big offense or something. Or maybe just because they knew that him being killed would raise a big stink. My heart was racing. Beads of cold sweat had formed on my back. I felt a scream welling up in my throat, but something held it back.
警察電話。
Watabe's eyes were motionless, pointing toward nothing in particular. I wanted to look away from this madness, but I couldn't.
警察って何番？そうだ。117。
No, wait, the police are... Wait, what was it? Maybe it's 119?
おい。
That's Kunasato, right? When we heard the voice, we were finally able to tear our eyes away from Watabe's body. There was a female student making her way toward us, past the crowds fleeing toward the exits. A female student? No, she felt too grown up for that. She was wearing a white lab coat. Between that and the sharp look in her eyes, part of me thought she might be a coroner. She slowly looked around the gym. Her gaze stopped at Watabe's body.
あれは
And then, without moving an eyebrow, she said,
やったのはお前たちか。
Okay, her words, delusionary origin of the tale's other side.
なるほどな。じゃあ、被害者渡部さんは、時間になっても体育館に現れなかったと。
はい。
そこで、宮代くんと和樹さん、それから有村さんが待っていたところ、彼がいきなり舞台に上がってきて、そこで事件は起きた。間違いないね。
はい。
After that, we were all in a total daze and everything happened very fast. The black-haired woman who had suddenly appeared called Detective Shinjo-san, who contacted the police station. Since our club was supposed to have an interview with him, we were questioned in our club room. During the questioning, we could hear students yelling outside and the sound of dozens of patrol car sirens, but it all quickly faded back into silence. The police had probably sealed off the whole school. There had been no announcement about what was going to happen with the culture festival, but after what had happened, there was no way it wouldn't be shut down.
で、伊藤くんと尾上さんは、事件の前に渡部さんの控え室へ行ったんだよね。渡部さんとは会わなかったのかい？
Huh? Am I a suspect? That's what Ito must have thought because he suddenly started acting strange.
でも控え室には誰もいなかったんすな、尾上。
部屋は空っぽでした。
生徒会の役員は渡部さんの世話をしてたはずだろ？
それもいなかったです。
Serica must have been surprised by the sudden question because she started to fiddle with her Garo Froggy cell phone strap.
おいお前。不愉快な音を立てるな。うるさい。ごめんなさい。
She must have only then realized she was doing it because she quickly took her hand away from the strap.
尾上、落ち着け。誰もお前を疑ったりしないって。
ありがとう、タク。
有村さん、二人の言ってることは本当かな？
ええ、嘘じゃないですね。本当に誰もいなかったみたいですよ。
There was no doubt in her voice. From the look on her face, you'd think she knew the whole story. And for some reason, Shinjo-san seemed to believe her.
そうか。了解だ。
He believed every word Aramura-san had said during the entire questioning. It was kind of strange. Did the two of them trust each other that much?
一応聞いておくが、有村さん。君は体育館に行く前は何をしていたんだ？
何言ってるんですか？直前まであなたたちと一緒にいたはずですけど。もしかして忘れてます？もしそうなら脳の精密検査を受けることをおすすめしますけど。
いや、もちろん分かっているさ。ただ、念のためというやつで。
Poor Shinjo, I feel bad. He's just getting, like, feels like a butt monkey a little bit. He's just getting roasted by just younger girls all around him. Shinjo-san scratched his head as if he didn't know how to respond. I take that back. There clearly wasn't any trust between the two of them. In fact, he didn't seem to know how to handle her. Then why would he trust what she said? Something felt strange. And there was one more thing. Aramura-san had said she was with Shinjo-san until right before she came to the gym. But there had been barely any time between Watabe-san's appearance on the stage and Shinjo-san's arrival. So what had Shinjo-san been doing at the culture festival?
まさか、最初から何かが起こると予想してた。
And then he'd gotten in touch with Aramura-san ahead of time?
状況から考えると、君たちが彼の死に関与していることはなさそうだ。しかし、そうなると誰が？
Who killed Watabe and how?
渡部さんが舞台に上がってきたとき、怪しい人を見たりしていないか？
はい。誰も。
君はどうだ？
The black-haired girl had been leaning against the wall with her arms crossed. She looked up.
残念ながら。私が駆けつけた時、現場はパニック状態だったからな。
Her voice was as mature and calm as her appearance. She was probably a third-year student, but I'd never seen her around the school before. Maybe the white lab coat was because she was part of the biology club or the science club. But what would a student be doing here with a detective?
まったく。面倒なことだ。お前たちが犯人だったら簡単に済んでよかったんだが。それ、どういう意味です？どうもこうも、そのままの意味だ。私からすれば、あなたの方が怪しいですけど。私は犯人じゃない。ほら。
Oh, you should know better than anyone if I'm lying.
私が嘘をついているかどうか、お前が一番よくわかっているはずだが。
Aramura-san was clearly annoyed, but the black-haired girl didn't seem to care in the slightest.
まあまあ、久野里さん、それくらいにしといてくれ。
Her name was Kunosato-san then. Evidently, she knew Aramura-san, but it was clear from their conversation that the two of them didn't get along. And for some reason...
おい、お前。
Maybe he'd be like, she sounds somewhat familiar?
はい、僕ですか。
他に誰がいる？
それは。
さっきから何をジロジロ見ている？
いえ、別に。
だったら下でも向いていろ。鬱陶しい。
I didn't know why, but Kunosato-san seemed to have it out for me too, not just Aramura-san.
一体何なんだ。
What did I do? I've never even met this girl before. Why is she acting like this?
いや、待てよ。
Or am I wrong and we've actually met somewhere before? Did I do something to tick her off? It was no good. I tried to remember and couldn't. But strangely,
彼女の声。
it felt like I had heard that voice somewhere before. But where?
ダメだ。こういう時に限って思い出せない。
It was really bugging me. There was nothing so useless as information that was inside you, but that you couldn't retrieve when you needed it. Information was only valuable if you could use it.
とにかく、もう一度確認させてくれ。 君たちは舞台の下で対談を待っていた。だが、いくら待っても渡部さんは現れず、伊藤君と尾上さんが様子を見に行った。その後しばらくして、突然渡部さんが舞台に上がってきて、そこで倒れた。間違いないね。
はい。
I suddenly remembered the way Watabe had looked. His eyes were out of focus but full of terror. He was weeping tears of blood. His hand was stretched out as if seeking help, and the sumo stickers poured out of his mouth, covered in blood and vomit. It was a bizarre scene. I looked over at Aramura-san, and she must have remembered it too because she was wincing.
両目から出血。口からは異物を嘔吐か。吐き出したのは力士シールと呼ばれる妙なシールだったな。検視は進んでいるのか、新庄さん。解剖はいつ行われる？
子供たちの前でそこまでは。
子供たちの前か。
Kunasato-san snorted, annoyed.
まあとにかく君たち新聞部には全員ちゃんとアリバイがある。心配しなくていいからな。
I breathed a sigh of relief. Even if I knew I was innocent, I'd still be terrified of being arrested anyway.
ただ君と有村君、それと和樹君は事件を間近で見た目撃者だ。申し訳ないが、所轄の担当者が資料を作るのに協力してほしいと言ってる。
はいはい。やだって言ってもどうせ連れてくんですよね。
いや、別に君たちは被疑者じゃないから、あくまでも協力をだね。
この前もそんなこと言ってましたけど。
しかし、なんだろうな、君たちは。
Shinjo-san brushed his hand through his bangs. He hadn't cut his hair for a while.
何がです？
The fact he's like, why do you newspaper club kids always end up like being involved somehow?
前回の柿田さんの事件といい、先日の彼女、クルス・ノノさんの死傷事件といい、ここのところ怪しい事件といえば必ず君たちが関わっている。これは偶然なんだろうか。
それは。
He was right. Even ignoring what happened to Kurusu, this was another potential homicide, like revolving dead. But we were just innocent bystanders. I knew that better than anyone.
僕たちは本当にたまたま。
たまたま？
Kunasato interrupted me.
本当にたまたまなのか？お前たちが気づいていないだけで何かある可能性は？事件を呼び寄せるような何かが。
I tried to say something back to her, but couldn't. Her eyes were that cold when she looked at me. Damn, what is with this girl? I was starting to get angry, and that was enough to get me to open my mouth.
僕、あなたに何か。
なんだ？
But I regretted it immediately. She was scary.
その。
言いたいことがあるならはっきり言え。時間の無駄だ。
じゃあ聞かせてもらいます。けど僕、あなたに何かしましたか？
ああ？
なんだかすごく嫌われてるような。いや、僕の気のせいだったら、すみません。
気にしない方がいいですよ、先輩。この人は誰に対してもこんな感じですから。
With everyone? Was that true? That was okay then.
誰に対してもというのは違うな。お前たちに対してだけだ。
お前たち？
Maybe like Chaos Children?
ああ、そうだ。お前たちだ。
Does she mean me and Aramura-san? Or...
もしかして、
I mean, she's
以前
not...
どこかで。
She's not exactly nice to Shinji either. Shinjo?
いや。お前のその辛気臭い顔を見るのは初めてだ。
Damn. Then why does she have to be such a bitch?
とにかく 手口から見て今回の事件もこれまでの猟奇事件との関連性が疑われる。
ニュージェネの狂気の再来すか？
A strange way that Watabe had died. And then the fact today was October 10th. Just like Shinjo-san said, it was possible that there was a connection.
ああ、司法解剖の結果を待たなければ断定はできないが、日付と犯行の異常性は一致する。ところで宮代君、聞いてもいいか？
はい。何でしょうか？
あのボードは君たちが？
Oh shit, whoops. Shinjo-san was looking at the map that we'd put together to follow the case.
はい、そうですけど。
ちょっと見せてもらってもいいかな？
Shinjo-san stood up without waiting for my answer and walked over to the board. Kunosato-san moved away from the wall and followed him.
これ、どう思う？
そうだな。
The two of them started to whisper to each other. I tried to listen in, but I couldn't make it out. With nothing else to do, I whispered to Aramura-san.
あのさ、あの久野里って人、うちの生徒なのか？
For some reason, Aramura-san was staring at me in surprise.
僕、何か変なこと言った？
いえ、先輩がタメ口だったから。
I must have been so distracted by everything that was going on that I didn't notice.
ごめんなさい、つい。
いえ、そのままでいいです。私は前からそうしてくれと言ってましたし。
わかりまし、じゃなくて、わかったよ。
Ah, damn it. She shouldn't have said anything. Like, as soon as you mention it, he's gonna get awkward about it.
有村。
え？
さんもつけなくていいです。
わかった。有村。
First, the two of us had been together at the scene of Watabe's death, and now we had that strange, arrogant woman angry at us. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. Maybe that was why I was finally able to talk to her normally.
それで、何の話でしたっけ？
だからあの人。
The two of them were still talking about something in front of the map I'd made.
知らないんですか？先輩と同じ3年生だそうですよ。と言っても、ほとんど学校に来
Which
た
is
こと
even
ないら
funnier,
しい
the
ですけど。
fact that Shinjo was like, don't talk like that in front of the children when she's literally as old as most of them.
学校に来ないって、不登校ってこと？
さあ、私もそこまでは。
So she was in my grade, but I was sure I'd never seen her at school. Ito and Kurusu had a lot of connections. Would they know her?
っていうか、そもそも何者なんだ？僕たちのこと嫌ってるみたいだけど。
さあ。
さあって、知り合いなんだろ？
私も、この前会ったばかりで詳しいことは知りません。ただ。
Our conversation was cut off by the sudden sound of a phone.
失礼。
Shinjo-san took his phone out of his pocket. It was an old Japanese flip phone. Who still used one of those in 2015? I had a flip phone. I had a flip phone until 2016, and the only reason I decided to get a smartphone was because of Pokemon Go. That's a fun little fact about me. I started to worry about whether a wrong-sider like that was capable of solving this case at all.
ああ、そうか。わかった。それじゃあ。
Someone must have told him to go somewhere. He folded up his phone and put it back in his pocket, then turned to face us.
俺たちは先に失礼する。君たちの迎えは少し後になると思うが、くれぐれも協力頼むな。
はあ。
わかりました。
だから、そうめんどくさそうな顔するなって。時間がかからないように手は打っておく。それじゃ、頼んだぞ。
Shinjo-san motioned to Kunosato-san, and the two of them left the room. As she left, she gave us one last cold glance. And then the room fell silent. No one felt like talking, so we started to take out our phones or read magazines. He'd said it would be a while before the police would arrive to pick us up. The only thing we could do was kill time.
なあ。
I tried to talk to Aramura, but she either didn't hear me or was ignoring me. She was playing with her phone. She seemed to be trying to get in touch with someone. It looked like she had a lot of friends, so she may have been asking someone what happened with the culture festival.
もう一度事件の整理をしてみるか。
ねえ、タク。
ん？
Sarika stopped me as I start to head for the board.
どうした尾上？
能力者ってなんだろうね。
は？
Psychic. Wait, psychic? Like those con artists you see running dingy little shops? It can't be.
なんだそれ。ラノベかなんかの話か。
ううん。さっき、新藤さん？
新庄さんか。
Oh, she heard them. Because I'm guessing she's got good hearing.
うん。さっき新庄さんが制服の上に白衣着た人とそんなことを。
お前、二人の話聞こえたのか？
It was true the two of them had been mumbling in front of the board. I could barely hear it, but Sarika was evidently able to make out some words from where she was sitting.
歴史シールの不可思議な現象とか、能力者がなんとかとか、事件に関係あるのかなって。
If they were talking about it now, then of course it had something to do with the case. But still, psychics. Like a mind reader or something? Or someone who could move stuff with his brain? They didn't think this was all being caused by psychics with superpowers or something, did they?
いくらなんでも警察がそんなこと真面目に。
聞き間違いじゃないのか？
Both Ito and Kazuki were looking at her questioningly.
そうかな。確かにそんな風に聞こえたんだけど。
なあ有村。何か心当たりはないか？
She'd spent time with Shinjo-san, so maybe she knew, but...
有村。
え？ああ、何ですかそれ。私アニメとか見ないんで。
She didn't really seem interested. Well, that's what most people our age would think when they heard the word psychic.
尾上、他に何か聞こえなかったか？新庄さんたちの話。
他にはね、
She was about to open her mouth. But then the sound of the door opening cut her off. Oh,
おーい、
of course.
宮代くん、和樹くんいる？それに有村くんも。
I mean, they're showing this guy so much now that I'm starting to wonder if the game is intentionally wanting me to be suspicious of him, and he actually has nothing to do with it. But the fact he was with Watanabe right before he died, I mean, come on.
先生。
よしよし、おとなしくしてるね。そろそろ警察に行くよ。
I mean, he's like the only teacher that actually has a sprite, so he's an important character.
え？警察の人が迎えに来るんじゃ。
引率係だよ。君たちは別に犯罪者じゃないし、あくまでもうちの生徒だからね。
Or
警察に呼ばれたなら僕が連れて行くのが筋だと思って。
Or he wants to keep a close eye on them to see what they actually might know.
どうだい？僕っていい教師だろ？
As if he'd ever actually done anything for us as our advisor, but still, I felt just a little relieved.
それじゃ行こうか。ああ、伊藤君と尾上君はすぐに帰宅すること。いいね。
ういっす。
はーい。
The two of them started to get ready.
先生。
なんだい？
文化祭はどうなるんでしょうか？
さあ、今ちょうど会議中でどうなるかはまだわからないね。
That's all he said before he left the room. It was strange. Why had I asked that?
文化祭なんて別にどうでもよかったのにな。
Oh, whatever, dude. You want to secretly be a normie? Stop fighting it.
嘘ね。
え
Maybe that's her ability. Because Kunosato-san said about how, like, to Aramura, like, you would know if I was lying, right? And I don't know, maybe she, like, that's part of if she has a special ability, a power. And didn't she say that to the cop as well? Said, like, you're lying? Maybe that's her ability, if she has one, if she can, like, suss out if people are lying. I wanted to ask what she meant, but it was clear she wasn't going to tell me. She followed Mr. Wakui out into the hallway.
どうかした宮代くん。
I could hear him from outside the room.
Hmm?
Kazuki looked over to me and made a let's go gesture. There was something that I wanted to know, no matter what. What Serika had just said. About Shinjo-san and Kunosato-san seriously discussing the word psychics. Mr. Wakui's entrance had interrupted our conversation, but I wasn't sure if it was okay to really write the idea off as silly nonsense.
すみません。これから警察行くなら結構時間かかりますよね。
そうなるだろうね。
だったら貴重品とかまとめて持って行ってもいいですか？置きっぱなしっていうのもなんなんで。
ああ、確かに。有村くん、君も自分の教室へ行って持ってきなさい。僕は昇降口で待ってるから。
はい。
I listened to the two of them walk away. Okay, that should buy me a little time.
おい、尾上。
お？どうしたのタク。
し、さっきの話の続きだけどな。聞かせてくれないか？
Okay, it's been a while. I can't remember exactly. This Ami-chan. Okay. Max Caddy. Where is the target being questioned for their involvement in the case? A suspect. It appears unlikely, but they may have finally noticed. Understood. Continue, of course. Right? That's gotta be the teacher that's talking. Shinjo grimaced. The smell of death was enough to make him nauseous. Watabe Tomoyaki's body had been taken to a university hospital and put on an autopsy table less than 2 hours after his death. Normally, an autopsy would never be held this quickly. There was paperwork that needed to be filled out, and the family needed to agree. But Watabe's death was so bizarre that a cause of death needed to be found as soon as possible. Shinjo had taken a hard line with his superiors, and used rather forceful methods to get the family's permission to perform a lightning-fast autopsy. The police force as a whole seemed determined to avoid a repeat of the failures 6 years ago. But what was truly unexpected was Kunosato's statement that she would attend to the autopsy as well. Since he couldn't let a civilian, especially a high school girl, attend an autopsy unsupervised, he'd been forced to go with her. The hospital's autopsy room was kept clean and very different from the musty atmosphere you often saw in foreign movies. But to Shinjo, the invisible smell of death was still thick in the air. It was nothing like seeing a body at a crime scene. It was almost physically uncomfortable. But Kunosato Mio, as far as he could tell, didn't seem bothered at all. Shinjo and Kunosato were watching the autopsy from the waiting room next door. The wall had glass to allow them to see into the room. The external and internal examinations had been completed, and now they were opening up the stomach and examining it.
君はこうなることを予見していたのか？
予見？
今日わざわざ渡部の対談を見に行くと言い出したのはなぜだ？それどころか有村ひなえにも渡部と接触するよう昨日から指示していたんだろう？まさか実は君が黒幕だとかいうオチはやめてくれよ。
そうできるならそうしてもいいかもな。
Shinjo couldn't tell if she was serious or not. He'd spent the last several days with her, but he still had no idea what she was thinking.
渡部が殺されるかもしれないという予感はあった。予感を確信に変えるために有村に接触するように指示したんだ。だがまさか今日殺されるという予想はしていなかった。
I don't remember if they mentioned that Orimura was the one who made contact with Watabe. And why there'd be a reason why that would be the case.
有村ひなえが渡部に接触すると何がわかるんだ？
She didn't answer him, even though he was sharing police information with her. Would it really kill her to be a little more cooperative?
渡部はあの若さで スクープを連発しすぎていたと思わないか？
ああ、それが何か？
Just as he spoke, he heard a muffled moan come from the coroner.
これは
There was microphones in the autopsy room that would let them hear anything said there.
どうしたんだろ
こんなの信じられない。
う。どうしたんだ？
Shinjo pounded on the glass and motioned for the coroner to explain. The coroner nodded and moved the body so they could see it better. Then he held up a pair of tweezers. He plunged the tweezers into Watabe's open abdomen. From where Shinjo and Kunosato were standing, they couldn't see inside. The tweezers seemed to grab something.
見てくれ。
That was all he said as he lifted up the tweezers. Between them was a sumo sticker in excellent
胃
condition.
の中で見つかった。
I wonder if that's the sticker specifically that was the one that was at the crime scene that Watabe took a picture of.
綺麗すぎるな。
It wasn't twisted or broken. The sticker was almost entirely intact.
それだけじゃない。こんなのは異常だ。
Suddenly, Kunosato opened the door leading into the autopsy room.
おい、勝手に。
You couldn't go in there without changing your clothes or disinfecting yourself. He tried to tell her that, but gave up. It was more important to find out what the coroner had seen. So he followed her in, even though he knew he wasn't supposed to. The coroner said nothing. He just stood there silently, holding his tweezers. Even Kunosato was shocked by what she saw inside the body. So was Shinjo.
これは。
He covered his mouth with a handkerchief. It was just too bizarre. Watabe's stomach was so swollen it seemed ready to burst. And inside the stomach he could see not just dozens, but hundreds of sumo stickers.
まだちゃんと確認はしていないが、食道にも異常なほどの膨張が見られる。シールが途中で詰まっている可能性が高い。
考えられる死因は？
窒息死だろうな。
つまりこういうことか。渡部は窒息するほど何枚も何枚も何枚も力士シールを飲み込んでいたと。
No one, not Shinjo or the coroner, said a word. By the time Kazuki and I got back from the police station, the school looked completely different. The bustling school building was now almost completely empty. All the police tape was gone except from the gym where the death had occurred. They must have finished their examination of the area. From the look of things, if I went back to the club room, I probably wouldn't find anyone there. But for now...
Huh?
ああ、タク、花ちゃん、おかえり。
なんだ、思ったより早かったな。
Serika and Ito were there.
有村は？
警察からまっすぐ帰った。もしかして僕たちを待っててくれたのか？
誰が好き好んで野郎を待たなきゃいかんのだ。和樹のことを待ってたんだよ。
Kazuki gave Ito a little bow.
花ちゃん、騙されちゃダメだよ。しんちゃんは片付けに時間がかかってるだけだから。ん？
こらこら、言うなお前は。
Well, that's what I'd figured, but I felt a little, no, a lot better. I could still see that awful corpse when I closed my eyes. Since I hadn't eaten anything since this morning, there was nothing to go up my throat except stomach acid. Because of that, my esophagus was starting to hurt. Just being able to talk to everyone like this made me feel a lot better.
あ、でも片付けってことはやっぱ中止なのか、学祭。
うん、タクが出てった後、アナウンスがあって。
そっか。もしかしたら延期って可能性もあるかと思ったんだけど。
ま、しゃあねえわな。 なんたって殺人だからな。
And since it might have to do with the other strange deaths, the school probably didn't have much of a choice.
で、お前らの方はどうだったんだよ。犯人扱いとかされなかったか？大丈夫か？
なんで僕が疑われるんだよ。むしろ重要な目撃者だぞ。
だからじゃねえか。ミステリーで目撃者っつったら容疑者確定だろ。
刑事ドラマの見過ぎだって。
But still, just like Shinjo-san had said earlier, it would make sense if they suspected me, I think. This was the second time after the revolving dead incident that someone had died near me.
それにしてもさ、本当に今日事件が起こるなんてな。これで俺たちの推測は当たってたってことだな。
そうだな。
I leaned my tired body back into a chair and looked at the map on the wall. Now there was even more evidence. We could be certain at this point that what happened this morning was in some way related to the new gen madness. But we still didn't know who had done it or why. The sumo stickers that made me sick every time I saw them were the only clue we had.
しかも今回の渡部の殺人には、それが直接凶器として使われていた。
は？なんだって？
To be honest, I didn't really want to remember that. There was no way to know this unless you'd experienced it for yourself. But seeing something in a video and seeing it in person were two radically different things. The biggest difference was the smell. Even if there was no blood, like this morning, there was still a unique stench in the air. Part of it was the smell of vomit and the excrement that slid out of the body after the muscles had relaxed. But there was more to it than that. There was a unique stench that corpses possessed. The smell of death, you might call it. Whenever I saw the body in my mind, I also remembered the smell.
警察の話だと、渡部の死因は窒息死だよな。口の中に例のシールがいっぱいだったんだろ？
シールを口に入れられて喉に詰まっちゃったのかな。
犯人はなんでそんなことしたんだ？つうかさ、そもそも今までの事件と犯人が同じだと思うか？
どういうこと？
だって、なあ。
Ito stopped and shrugged. I knew what he was trying to say. If we assumed all these incidents were related, compared to Don't Look, Audio Bleed, and Revolving Dead, this murder seemed very different. The killer had jammed sumo stickers into the victim's mouth until he choked. It was cruel, sure. It also felt sloppy, brutal, and crude. But
僕だって最初はそう考えたよ。警察から話を聞くまではね。でも
when I was leaving the station, I heard the cops talking about the results of the autopsy. They said Watabe's stomach was filled to the brim with sumo stickers. So this case was every bit as weird as the other three. I tried to get out of the chair, but I was still a little tired, so I staggered a bit.
すべての事件の特徴を順を追って見てみると、今回の事件も明らかに同一の事件に属するものじゃないかと思えるんだ。
これまでの事件と共通点があるってこと？
それを聞いてほしい。順を追って話す。
Yes, that's a good idea. Let's go over the details. When you only play this once a week, you kind of forget about the details of the murders. I think something that was it was like the bleeding from the eyes. I think that happened to everybody. That's right. What I was about to explain included a critical factor that we'd never even considered before. It was what I talked to Serica about before I'd left for the police station, and then the whole thing about like the psychics, like what that is all
さ
about.
っきの話の続きだけどな。聞かせてくれないか。
さっきの話？
言ってたろ。新庄さんと久野里さんの話。能力者とか不可思議なこととか。
ああ、なんだっけ。そうそう、なんかね、変なんだって、これまでの事件が。
そりゃ変だろ。だからこそ僕たちだって追っかけてるわけだし。
ああ、そういう意味じゃなくてね、死んだ被害者の人たちが。
ん？
So there's a connection between the people. Like,
最初の犠牲者、こっちみんなの人のニア生のタイトル知ってるよね。
俺氏未来が見えてしまう剣だろ。
本当にね、その未来を予知できたのかもって。
は？
That's crazy. Was that some kind of joke? Like the guy knew about all the murders that were gonna happen?
次の若漏れたんだけど、ライブに来てた人が変だったんだって。
変ってどういう意味だ？
Like part of a cult or something?
なんか熱に浮かされてたみたいな感じ？歌自体は大したことないんだけど、歌声に取りつかれたみたいな。
なんだよそれ。よくわかんないな。
そんなこと言われても、そう言ってたんだもん。
まあいい。で、次の回転デッドは？
バイトなのに業績がすごく良かったって。
Okay, so it's people who like got abilities. So maybe it's a thing where it's like they were given special powers, but then eventually someone came to collect their lives as like, okay, we're gonna give you these special abilities, like the ability to see the future, or the ability to entrance people with your music, or the ability to be really successful at your job, but you gotta pay eventually. And then Watabe, like his ability at getting the scoop on things, it's like maybe he also kind of made a deal with the devil in some way.
そうなんだけどね、なんかこう相手の望んでることがわかるっていうか、もしかしたら盗聴でもしてるんじゃないかって陰で言われてたみたい。私が聞いたのはこれで全部だけど。
So maybe that's it, like all of these people are psychics in some way, like they have some sort of abilities that they got?
いや、上出来だ。よくそこまで聞き取ってくれたな。
もしかして役に立つ？
So with the exception of the third guy, it seems like also I would have made the connection that they're all in some way related to the media. There's the guy who does the live streams, there's the girl who does the music, there's Watabe, and then the salesperson's kind of an outlier. Shinjo-san and Kunosato-san were talking very softly, so I hadn't been able to hear them all. See, like I said, Serika is like low-key. She's the goat here. She seems kind of spacey and dumb, but she's actually really perceptive and smart, and she picks up on stuff other people don't, and she's given us a lot of good information. It was definitely thanks to Serika that we had this information, but still.
能力？そんなまさか。
おーい、宮代くん、まだなのか？
あ、すみません。すぐ行きます。
And there's that little smile Kazuki just gave. Is she secretly, maybe she's part of this psychic group as well? Maybe she's working undercover with the people that are killing? Oh, wouldn't that be... Whoa, wait a minute. What if she's working with the teacher? Like she's kind of like a mole, and she's the one that's telling them information? I don't know. I don't know what to think about Kazuki. She's a weird one. After what I'd heard from talking to Serika, it was unbelievable. But if I looked at all the cases so far, in light of that...
すべてを確かめるために、もう一度事件を整理してみるから、見ててくれ。
I turned to face the board on the wall. When I did so, I could feel strength coming back to my tired body and mind. Good, I was fine. What happened this morning hadn't made me afraid. Everyone looked at the Shibuya map, even Kazuki.
なんだ？円数2をプレイするんじゃないのか？
For some reason, Kazuki always participated when we used this. Well, whatever, right? Like, Kazuki wants to get this knowledge as well. I don't know. This is just me being suspicious of everybody. I should start with the first case. The key points to focus on were what I'd heard from Serika before going to the police station and what I knew about the victims. Together, they implied that...
そうか。やっ ぱりそういうことなのか。
No, wait, that can't be right.
けど、そう考えれば全ての辻褄が合う。
Actually, there were a lot of things that could only be explained that way. My mind was racing, and I soon felt a curiosity welling up within me that overrode the terror and disgust I'd felt when I was at the scene of the murders.
やっぱりそうだ。信じられないけれど、あり得る。
It was probably a stupid idea, but if it were true, it would be incredible. It would change everything we thought we knew about the world.
なんだよ、気持ち悪いな。急に変な笑い声出すなよ。
だってね、なんかいつものタクに戻ったなって。
あ、
Now that I thought about it, I'd gotten so excited that I'd forgotten about the nightmares that were going on around me. I should get back on topic.
僕は気づいたんだ。直接犯人には繋がらないかもしれないけど、事件の全容を知る上で、いや、ひょっとしたら世界の常識を覆すような大きな共通点に。
I could see Kazuki gasp in surprise.
マジかよ。
す
Everyone was looking at me as I explained everything piece by piece.
まず今回の渡部氏殺害事件がニュージェネの狂気の再来と呼ばれる一連の事件の延長線上にあるという話。
でもよ、さっきも言ったけど、ただの窒息死なんだろ？
いや違う。渡部の死因は確かに窒息死だけど、単に口の中いっぱいに力士シールを詰め込まれて死んだわけじゃない。
どういうことだ？
I stopped for a moment and took a deep breath. I knew that when I imagined it, I was going to shiver again.
彼は力士シールを胃の中までいっぱいに詰め込まれて死んだらしい。
Everyone's eyes went wide. I could tell they were trying to figure out the meaning of what I had just said.
胃の中まで？それって。
そう。力士シールを無理やり、それ
Mm.
も噛み砕くことなく原型を残したまま
The idea of him
大量に飲
willingly
み込
doing
ん
it.
で、あるいは飲まされて、それが原因で窒息して死んだ。そういうことになる。
そいつはまた。
雑どころじゃないんだ。むしろあまりにも変質的なんだよ。
だったら確かに今回の事件も一連の事件と同じ流れの中にあるってことになるわけか。
I nodded, then wrote down a brief overview of Watabe's death and pinned it to the map.
だがな、宮代、それがさっき言ってた世界の常識を覆すほどの共通点なのか？
いや、今のはただ渡部氏殺害事件が連続殺人事件の一環であるということを確認しただけで、もちろん本題はこの先にある。
I stopped talking for a second and looked around at everyone's faces.
まずこっちみんなと呼ばれている第一の事件の被害者、大谷優馬。彼は未来がわかると言っていた。
んなのただの煽り文句だろ。
いいから最後まで聞けって。
Ito shrugged and stopped talking.
第二の事件、音漏れ炭。被害者、高柳百音の歌声には妙な魅力があったってファンは口を揃えて証言してる。聞いているだけでトランス状態になれるって。
うんうん、あの刑事さんそんなようなことを言ってた。
クラブとかで踊ってる連中と同じだろ。音楽や歌が聴いてる人間をトランス状態にするのはよくあることだ。
人をそういう状態にするにはそれなりの条件が必要だろ。クラブなんかはそういう効果をもたらすために作られた閉鎖空間だ。でも高柳百音がストリートライブをしていた場所は違う。何の設備もない路上だ。
まあいいや、続けてくれ。
そして第3の事件、回転デッドの被害者、柿田博則。彼はまるで顧客の心が読めているみたいだったそうだ。
おい、まさか。
Ito seemed to realize what I was trying to say. That's my partner for you. He's got good intuition.
渡部のあの写真、力士シールの表情が違うってことは言ったよな。
I'd already told everyone the expression on the sumo sticker I'd photographed at the Love Hotel and the one in Watabe's article were different.
最初あれはコラージュか何かだと思った。実際渡部にはそういう噂があったからな。でもどうやら違うらしいんだ。刑事に確認してみたんだよ。そしたら渡部の撮った写真には改ざんされた形跡はなかったらしい。となると考えられる可能性は。
There was a chance many of Watabe's too good to be true photographs weren't taken with a camera. Oh. He probably used some sort of psychic photography. Oh, didn't the thing too with that video, the Revolving Dead video, wasn't that? Oh, because when we saw the video, it was like someone's eyes opening and closing. So was that Watabe? Like he was able to somehow use his psychic abilities to take pictures and videos from places he shouldn't be? Oh shit. I wrote everything that occurred to me down on a memo and pinned it to the map. Watabe's image wasn't real. It was taken with psychic photography. Ito laughed as I put it up.
いやいや、待てって。いくらなんでもそりゃないだろ。
しんちゃん、今のでわかったの
Kazuki seemed irritated that Ito had figured out the answer before her. She started to bang on the wall like she always did. I feel like the banging on the wall might be some sort of signal. Maybe she's signaling to the teacher? Like, hey, they figured it out.
で、おい、ほら、やめとけ。
Yeah, I'm suspicious of Kazuki. I feel like she's in on this in some way.
要するに宮代はこう言いたいんだ。今回の事件の被害者に共通するのは全員不可解とも思える現象を引き起こしていたという点だ。
Because in the text messages, that the person, maybe she's Ami-chan, and then the other person is the teacher. So maybe she was saying something like, they figured it out. Except, no, why? I was thinking because there's like, where's the person? They're on their way to the police station. Kazuki was there. She would know that, and so would the teacher. So either one of those people I'm wrong about, or possibly both of them I'm wrong about. But they, like she said, like they're close to figuring things out, or somebody said they're close to figuring things out. I don't know what to think. I don't know what to think. Yes, it means that they use tricks to control others' minds, have special powers. All right, I'm guessing special powers. Select this.
そう。彼らはみんな。
彼らは特殊な能力を持っていた。そうだな。
Ito took the words right out of my mouth.
特殊って、つまり
尾上が新庄さんから聞いた言葉で言うなら、能力者。つまり、超能力者ってことだよ。
超能力
Right? The way that she's reacting, it's more like she's shocked I figured it out rather than surprised at the news itself. That's the way I'm seeing it or hearing it.
超能力ってミステリー小説だったら奮発物どころか読者が怒っちまうぜ。
残念ながらこれは小説じゃない。事実だ。
だったらなおさらだよ。なあみんな。
Ito looked around at the others, expecting them to agree. But while Kazuki had looked surprised for a moment, she quickly returned to her usual inscrutable expression, and Serika was excited about something completely different.
超能力ってあれでしょ？こう透明になって女子更衣室に忍び込んだりするやつ。
No, 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 no. Where did that come from?
まあ、そういうのもあるかもしれないけど、普通はテレパシーとか。
パシーいいな。携帯電話とかいらないから料金かからないし。
Forget it. I should just give up on trying to talk to her about anything complicated. Oh, maybe that was a hint too, where Serica was like, you could use your psychic abilities to make calls without a cell phone. Maybe that's how that little girl was able to make a call from my phone, even though the phone has been disconnected.
でもさ、超能力なんて言い始めたら何でもありだろう。それこそ誰かが遠くから超能力を使って殺人を犯したとか。
いや、超能力って言っても多分そこまで便利なものじゃないんじゃないかな。せいぜい一つの能力しか使えないとか。それに忘れてもらっちゃ困るけど、超能力者なのは犯人ではなく被害者だってことだ。
でも被害者が超能力者ってことは犯人もそうだってことも考えられるだろ
う。まあな。
That was certainly possible. Or, no, it might actually be very likely.
ああ、そういえばさ。
Serica cut the two of us off. Her voice was easygoing and unconcerned.
前にアットチャンネルか何かでそういう都市伝説があるってタク言ってなかった？確か渋谷で生活してると不思議な力が身につくとか。
あ、
That's right. How could I have forgotten something so important? Well, I forgot about
う。そ
that
れなら
too.
俺も知ってるけどさ。でもあれって地震で死んだ人の霊が取り付くとかなんとか言われてる話だろ？いくらなんでもそれはな。
These visual novels always just come to the same conclusion. Don't live in Shibuya. A lot of weird and dangerous stuff happens there.
例の話は後付けで、現象だけは実際のものだとしたら。
んなこと言ってもさ。
火のないところに煙は立たないって言うよ。
火の気のないところに火をつけて回るのがアットチャンネルだろうが。
それはそうだけど。
でも尾上は聞いたんだよな。能力者がどうとか言うのは。
そうだよ。警察の人が言ってたもん。
だからってよ。
Ito still didn't seem willing to accept it. Well, I could understand that. Even I thought this was a little crazy. But for some reason it felt to me like this was the explanation closest to the truth.
伊藤の言いたいこともわかる。でも仮説の一つとして考えておいてもいいとは思わないか？
それはまあ。
He fell silent. Normally, Kazuki would have gotten bored with all this talking and gone back to her computer, but today she wasn't moving. She wasn't participating in our conversation, but for once she seemed interested.
まあ100歩譲って宮代の仮説が正しいとしようじゃないか。じゃあもう一つの共通点との関係は？
もう一つの共通点って？
力士シールだろ。
あ、そっか。
The sumo stickers were involved in this case too. No, you could say this time they were actually the murder weapon.
そもそもなんで全ての現場に力士シールがあるんだろうな。
普通に考えたら殺された人が残すんだよね。ダイビングメッセージだっけ？
ダイイングな。
Alright, a dying message, a message left by someone on the verge of death. They are often utilized in mysteries where they are left behind by the murder victim as a clue to find the killer. There have been several cases where dying messages were left behind by real murder victims.
でも今回の場合は凶器そのものが力士シールなんだからそれは当てはまらない。
となると犯人が置いてったってことだよな。自分がやったってことを分からせるためか、あるいは
誰かに何らかのメッセージを送るためか。
Which means that card would have some sort of meaning that all the victims understood. But the only thing they have in common that we know about now is they had special powers.
あ、電話だ。
Serica took her phone out of her pocket and looked at the screen, then frowned and looked at me.
のんちゃんから。
All right, well, that's going to do it for this episode. So I said the last episode was a lot of fluff, not too much going on. This episode certainly made up for that. So Watabe was killed in a pretty gruesome fashion, maybe almost like an ironic death, like him using his abilities, which we'll talk about, to be able to get scoops on things. And I didn't even like clock that when Watabe was saying about like how he was like given powers by God or like God-given rights or something to that effect. He said like, I am destined to be like the next big thing in journalism because I have like he made a mention of like having divine powers or something like that, and I just totally like just glossed over that, and now that makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the whole thing about the stickers, it felt like maybe there's like an ironic thing about like, oh, you care so much about this sumo sticker thing, we're gonna fill you full of the stickers and you're gonna die that way. But yeah, that leading on to the big thing finally, we're leading into like the supernatural aspect of it, kind of similar to like Chaos Head, where with the Gigalomaniacs, is now we have the fact that the connection with all of these murders is the people who died appear to have some sort of psychic powers. Once again, Serica coming through, the undisputed goat, I feel like, of the newspaper club. Maybe not undisputed, but she's like a sleeper goat, where it's like she just catches all these little things. Maybe she has psychic powers of her own that we don't know about, but she seems to catch all these little things. If she hadn't heard about the fact that the officer and Kunasato were mentioning psychics, that would have just passed by everybody. And this episode even more so makes me very suspicious of the teacher. The fact that he was the last one to see Watabe before he died. He's in on it. He has to be. I'm staking my claim on that he has something to do with this. So that was an exciting episode. I really liked it. Hope you guys did too. Thank you so much for watching. I can't wait to see what happens next, but we'll just have to wait until next week to see. Until then, bye. Shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Revealing Storm, Linz VA, Kenju Storm, iCognito, Kevlar, Sean, Waz RD1, and iZuzu.